Welcome to the Regenerative Agriculture, Thriving as a Modern Rancher, the podcast for ranchers and land stewards looking to build healthy land, profitable businesses, and a fulfilling life. Join us as we explore regenerative practices and holistic management to help you thrive in today's ranching world. I was at a class recently where the topic of armyworms and leafcutter ants came up. The proposed solution was spraying chemicals. Now, that's typically the answer we hear, and it seems logical at the moment. But here's the question I want to ask. What if weeds, armyworms, and cutter ants aren't actually the problem? What if they're just signaling something deeper going on in the land? Most land stewards I meet are spending time, money, and energy fighting these problems, but they keep coming back. Today, we're going to talk about why that happens and how to shift from chasing symptoms to managing root causes. Here's the common mindset. If I spray weeds, kill the armyworms, or treat the cutter ants, the problem will be gone. Does this sound familiar? I used to think the same thing. And it makes sense. When something's in front of us causing damage, we want to fix it fast. But the hard truth is, these weeds, these armyworms, these cutter ants aren't the real problem. They're actually the messengers. And maybe you've tried spraying weeds year after year after year, or you're pouring money into these treatments for the armyworms, or you're mixing up all sorts of chemical sprays to address the cutter ants. Or maybe you're like me. When I first started, I spent years pulling weeds by hand because I didn't want to use chemicals. And guess what? Those weeds kept coming back year after year. So it's a bit like putting buckets under a leaky roof. You feel like you're doing something, but unless you climb up and patch that hole, the problem never really goes away. What do we really want? Typically, it's healthy, productive land, fewer headaches, and lower costs. But instead, here's what usually happens. The weeds are back season after season. Those armyworms flare up after the next rain. And those cutter ants just keep multiplying when they show up. The land still feels like it's fighting you. And ultimately, the frustration grows. Here's why. Those armyworms, those weeds, those leafcutter ants, they're not the problem. They're actually the symptom. Weeds often signal mineral imbalances and typically grow where there's bare soil and it's been disturbed. Those armyworms sweep across like wildfire when ecosystems are simplified. Monoculture pastures give them a nonstop buffet. Those stressed out plants due to overgrazing lack natural defenses, and natural predators are scarce due to chemical use. Those leafcutter ants thrive as ecosystem super farmers when diversity and natural checks are missing. That monoculture pasture and the fresh regrowth give them endless amount of forage, while low predator pressure and sandy soils let cutter ants colonies expand. Spraying or treating them doesn't shift the system. It's like putting tape over your truck's check engine light so that you don't see the warning anymore, but the engine is still breaking down underneath. So what if instead of fighting them, you asked, what are they telling me about my land's health? These problems aren't random. They're indicators of land health and ineffective ecosystem function. If we take the time to observe and listen, we can identify that root cause behind what's showing up on the surface. And once we know that root cause, we can change our management in a way that addresses it directly. For me, once I stopped pulling those weeds and adjusted my grazing management, the weed problem diminished greatly. The land balanced itself when I gave it the right conditions. It's like a sagging corner post in your fence. You can keep stretching the wire and patching the spots, but until you reset that corner post, the whole fence will keep giving way. Nature is always communicating. Our job is to listen and not silence the messenger. So here's my question for you. What's one action you've been taking on your land that might actually be chasing a symptom instead of solving for the root cause? I love to hear it. Send me a DM on Instagram at Thriving Land Steward or tag me on social media. Every challenge you see on your land is simply an invitation to understand it more deeply. Those weeds, the armyworms, the cutter ants, they're all part of nature's way of showing you where the system needs some more support. When you listen and respond, you open the door to healthier land, more money in your bank, and more confidence in your stewardship. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or family member, subscribe to this podcast, and leave a review. This helps make the podcast more visible to other land stewards who also want to thrive. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, keep thriving as a modern rancher. Thanks for listening to Regenerative Agriculture, Thriving as a Modern Rancher. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share with fellow ranchers, and leave a review. Together we can regenerate our lands, our profits, and our lives. Until next time, keep thriving.